All right, welcome everyone to the XojoTalk podcast. This is Paul Lefebvre, the Xojo developer evangelist, and I have with me as a guest this time Tim Parnell, noted Xojo developer and forum participant. Welcome, Tim.
It's nice to be here.
Thanks for coming. Tim is very active in our forum, but he's also active creating lots of stuff to use with Xojo. And in this episode of XojoTalk, we're going to talk about some of the things that Tim is making and has made and how they can be used and why you might like them. So, Tim, let's go through a few of the things here. One of the first ones I have on my list is you make something called Answers. And that, from what I'm gathering, is probably like maybe the first thing you made for Xojo.
Yes, it is actually.
And can you describe a little bit of what that is and how people might use it?
It's designed to help you make help books for your software. It can make FAQ kind of segments on your website too, where you would click on the question and it jumps down. It's also got features where you can click on the question and it slides out. It's to help developers make help books so that we get help books, because I've been finding a lot of software lately doesn't include help or instructions. And when I was introduced to Xojo, I was like, I'll use that as my test project to see how I liked the tool.
So that brings up a point, is how long would you be saying you've been using Xojo?
I actually came from the Mac Heist promotion. I was an in-house developer for them, and I was part of their forums over there. And when they did the developer or the design award bundle, the Xojo was in that, and I came over and I tried the tool and I loved it because I'd heard about it before in form of Real Basic when I was growing up, but as a kid I couldn't afford it or anything. So now that I had it, I loved it, and I continue to use it now because it's so easy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that Mac Heist bundle was, gosh, I'm guessing a couple of years ago now.
I think it was 2014.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Probably like springtime. Yeah.
So I'm relatively new, but I have a lot of developer experience. So it's how I can do so many different projects so quickly.
All right, that's cool. So I'm looking at the page for Answers, and just to give people an understanding. Now, this doesn't embed anything specifically in their app or anything like that. This creates a document or HTML or something like that you post or use in another fashion?
Yeah, it creates the HTML. So if you want to bundle it into your app, you have to drop it through Apple Help Indexer or turn it into Windows Compiled Help, however you choose to do that. But one of the benefits of it putting out HTML is you can also put it online instead, so that you can have it on your website and you can just link to it there. So it lets you do different things with it by being just HTML when it comes out.
All right. And kind of segueing into what might be the next thing, does this make use of your HTML edit control?
It does, actually. It was the reason I created it. I needed HTML input and output from users, and I looked around for different solutions. There was one that existed that would give you HTML from the user, but you couldn't send HTML into it. So that would have meant I had to convert it to RTF and then put it in and then pull out the HTML. And I was just like, that's too many steps. So I created HTML edit, and I was like, if I do this right, I can make it a separate module that I can let other people use.
Right, and looking at the HTML edit module, that is a module that you can just kind of drop into your projects and use, right?
Yep, you drop it in, and it works just like a text area. So you have things like cell bold and cell italic, cell length and cell start. It works exactly like a text area control, and that was the idea, was to make it easy to use so that you, as it says on the website, already know how to use it.
That's a good tagline. Already know how to use it. And from looking at it, the toolbar associated with it appears to be built in.
Yes, it's part of it. HTML edit relies on the Quill editor, which you can find and use on your own website. You use it on whatever you need. It includes the toolbar, and it just makes it so easy to get HTML out of it. It's based off of the HTML5 technology called Content Editable. And I have a prototype on my computer of before I used Quill, and it works, but it's not anywhere near as pretty. And it's just a lot of mess. So when I found the all-in-one kit, I was like, I'm going to use that. And it looks really great, and it's really easy to use.
Awesome. Well, and I see you've got a little tag on your website that says it's 64-bit compatible. So good information for people. It looks like you can just drop it into a 64-bit build of your app and just use it as is. Now this, you had mentioned, it lets you type text kind of like WYSIWYG kind of stuff. And then you get out of that the actual HTML for the formatting and whatnot. And you said it can do the reverse. So if you have formatted HTML text already, you can send it to this and it'll display it in the formatted fashion.
Yep. That's one of the ways Answers works, is so it stores the HTML from whatever you put into it. And when you pull up an entry, it sends it back in. So easy input and output from your users.
That sounds like it would be pretty darn helpful. Now, recently, when it first came out, it was a desktop component, but recently you added a web version of HTML edit. Is that right?
That is correct. I was getting a lot of requests by email and on the forums. People were asking for a web version. So I, went through the process and figured out how to make web controls, and out came a web version, and it's the same control with the same functions. It's actually really beautiful that it pairs so well with the desktop app. You just drop it in.
So code would pretty much be the same because you've designed them to work the same.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Now, from creating these things, what did you find made it really easy for you to make these things versus what was trickier?
Well, the web control and the desktop control work in totally opposite fashions. The desktop control is more of a get function where when you try to get the HTML from it, the control goes in and asks Quill for whatever's going on. Whereas the web control is more of a push function where every time the user changes the content, it pushes it back to Xojo. It's really interesting because of the two different methods that have to be done for it to work. But that was one of the trickier parts, was figuring out the best way to get the web control working. The easy part was that it was already designed as HTML from being the previous control. I could just bundle it all together and use almost the same base.
And you use the web SDK to create the web version?
I use the thing that's bundled inside Xojo.
Yeah, that would be the web SDK, the thing that lets you hook up controls.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. It's a custom control.
Right, a web custom control. All right, cool. All right, and as I move through here, one thing I'll have to include these in the show notes is your sites for these all have different URLs, it looks like. So I'll have to make sure I put all those in properly. Okay. So here we go, Web Studio. This is a new one that, when did you announce this? Was it this year or was it last year?
Just earlier this year.
Yeah, I thought it was in January. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a collection of web-based tools and controls.
Yep. And it's going to continue to grow as I work on it some more.
So what do you have in there now?
I have the beginnings of some Bootstrap controls I basically opened up the Bootstrap documentation and just started working left to right.
But what is Bootstrap for people that aren't going to be familiar with it?
Bootstrap is a framework for the web that lets you build websites quickly with these components. It's got buttons and styles and even grid work for people who are working with responsive designs, to make it much easier to just build a website quickly. So there were requests in the forums for some of the controls, like the buttons, and I implemented the text field. And after making HTML edit for web, I discovered that it's actually really fun to make web controls to sort out what's going on between Xojo and the controls you're trying to make. And I don't know, I had fun. So I was like, I decided I would, jump on that request for Bootstrap controls since nobody had fulfilled it yet. And so I have the beginnings of Web Studio. I've got a few Bootstrap controls. I'm working on some more right now. And there's some tools in there that come from workarounds that I've needed. And those just help anybody who needs those workarounds in the snap. But it's going to be basically a collection of all of the controls that I make for web will end up in here, and it'll just be an easy access for anyone who needs those tools.
Nice. Yeah, so I see right now there looks like you get about 5, a button, just of code formatting. Well, actually a tool to display, I guess, source code of some type.
Yeah, like the code tags on the forums. It's for displaying source code so that if you're sharing it, it will format nice and pretty.
And then a text field and an image that you can customize corners and stuff with.
Yeah, and the image is a subclass of ImageWell, so that when you drop it into your Xojo project, you can get a little preview of where it's going to be and kind of how it looks.
Right.
You don't get to see the preview of the design you choose, but it's a lot easier to see than just dragging a blank square. So I tried to make them as native as possible by subclassing what I can so that it's easy to use.
Well, it sounds like that's a common theme you're shooting for, which I think is a good plan.
I'm a very long time Mac person, so I like things that just work.
So before, you said you found Xojo via the Mac Heist bundle. So what development tools had you used a lot in the past or before?
I was mainly using Xcode to make native Mac apps. I didn't really dabble into Windows at all. And I was actually made Mac Dust, which I don't know how many people have heard of, but it was quite popular. It was for like cleaning up cache files and extra gobbledygook that ended up all around your computer. That I created back on an iBook with a 60 gigabyte hard drive. That's why I created it. I ran out of space awfully quickly. And then I worked on TinyGrab, which was popular during the everybody needs their own screenshot tool era, where everybody had different tools for screenshots and automatic uploading.
Yep.
TinyGrab was one of them, and I worked on the desktop tool for that. And then Mac Heist actually hired me as an internal developer for the chat program that they use. My experience in web development meant that we hacked together this little web app that was a desktop control, but it had like notifications and stuff. It was really an extension of the chat on the website, but it was so much cooler because it had the different native features.
Yeah, I remember those. I mean, Mac Heist is still around, obviously, but their website is very interactive with lots of snazzy stuff on it.
Yeah, the guy who makes the website, he's really talented. We could wake him up at 2 a.m. with a problem and it'd be fixed really quickly.
Yeah, I haven't checked Mac Heist lately to see what they're up to, but
they're kind of slowing off and just doing bundles now. They haven't done a big game in a while.
Yeah, I remember they did those for pretty regularly for a while. I don't even remember what their last bundle was. I'll have to make a note to check out the latest website. Last
one wasn't that great, but it had a System 7, or it was either System 7 or System 6, like emulator built in JavaScript. It was amazing.
Really? That's funny. I think it's Jeff.
Oh, it was a flashback bundle or something like that, like tools that have been around since Classic.
Huh.
It was interesting.
Yeah, I think Jeff Atwood had coined that pretty much people can code up anything in JavaScript these days because you're seeing emulators that people are writing using JavaScript, which just seems crazy.
Yeah, I played Where in the World was Carmen Sandiego on the Internet Archive the other day. Because the Internet Archive is doing that where they've got all of those MS-DOS programs.
Yeah, I've seen that. They have a section that has all kinds of older games from the 80s and early 90s that are running just in a web browser.
Yeah, and I saw Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and I was like, I have 6 floppy disks somewhere that are that game, so I have to play this.
Yeah, I'll have to dig up that link. I played around with a few things there, and I bet it's the sort of thing that you don't want to go down that rabbit hole because you won't come up for a couple hours. And like, yeah. I remember this.
I would agree with that.
Well, speaking of bundle-related stuff, there is a Xojo bundle going on right now, and I think you got one of, or maybe more than one of these things of your products in the bundle. Yes,
Omega Bundle is back. And I've got answers and the source code license for HTML edit for desktop. So 2 of my controls are in there. Well, 2 of my products are in there, and it's bundled in with a whole bunch of other great stuff. And it's back.
Yeah, that's the Omni bundle. Is that what they call it?
Omega. It's from Lynn Fredericks.
Yeah, they've been doing that it seems like every year the last few years, I guess.
I believe that's correct. Got some stuff from Sam Rollins in it. It's got App Wrapper, Retina Kit, Sandbox Kit. Get XDev Magazine, Valencia Studio, Rubber Views. Some stuff from Christian, looks like.
All right, I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well so people can check out what's in it. Bundles are always a fun way to get a bunch of stuff all at once. I know I like grabbing software from bundles, and sometimes you grab the bundle because you only need 1 or 2 things in it, but then you end up over time using everything that's in it.
You come back and you're like, you know what? I could totally use that.
Yeah.
And it's there for you because you got the bundle.
Yeah, my favorite FTP client that I use is Forklift. And,
me too.
Yeah, I think I got that in a bundle years ago, and but I liked it so much I've just been paying for all the upgrades ever since, and that one's great. And I don't even know if I would have heard of it otherwise. Really, a lot of people, don't always search around and compare lots of tools like that. So you need some ways to get exposed to them, much like how you got exposed with Xojo in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so do you do a lot of Xojo development outside of these projects you're working on, or is this what takes up a lot of your time?
I don't necessarily use it outside of these projects because I haven't been hired for, we need this app made. I haven't had anything like that where I've found the need to use Xojo, but when I need a tool if I have to make a tool for myself, first thing I do is open up Xojo because it's easy. You drag things on and you can access them real quickly. It makes software easy for me.
Yeah, we find that with a lot of people that they have kind of Xojo sitting next to their other tools that they also work regularly with, and often people will gravitate to Xojo first because it is so much quicker for them to bang something out than it is using other tools that they might use more often even. All right. Anything else you wanted to bring up about any stuff you're working on with Xojo?
No, not really. Covered the the big tools there.
Well, certainly there's a good collection to start with at this point, and it sounds like these things are only going to continue to grow over time. I'll remind everyone to check out the show notes associated with the podcast. There'll be links to all this stuff. You can just tap on them and head on over to websites and check things out. So, Tim, I want to thank you for being on this episode of XojoTalk.
It was an honor.
Have a great day, everyone.